I've reached my limit. I hate to ask, but can I crash at your place for a few days?
Dad had been kicked out of the family home by my sisters and Mom, and now he stood at my doorstep. Seeing Dad, who had always been so strong, talk about reaching his limit, I blamed myself. "I'm sorry, Dad." In that moment, as I tried to apologize for my inability to help alleviate his suffering, my husband Ethan spoke up.
"Let's live with your father-in-law."
"Are you sure?" I turned to Ethan, surprise evident in my voice. Dad, too, could barely hide his shock, his eyes wide open. "My name is Emily. I'm 26 years old. Ethan and I started dating in college, and we got married 2 years ago. Our days are filled with a fulfilling work-life balance. Ethan is my best supporter, always by my side. I never thought I'd find someone who gives me such confidence, let alone marry them. As the youngest of 3 sisters, I grew up in an environment where I could never go against my mom and my sisters. I was always the last one in line for attention from Mom, and also the lowest in rank among my sisters. Every time I voiced an opinion, sharp words would come flying back at me. Over time, I stopped expressing myself and started to suppress my feelings. I bore the treatment of being treated like a servant by my mom and my sisters without complaining. "I wanted a boy. When I found out you were another girl, I was so disgusted. Grace and Ashley are enough for girls. You're an unwanted child, and yet here you are in this house. If you want to stay here, you have to work." Mom often belittled me like this. Even if you tell me that, how many times have I swallowed my words, the ones I wanted to say back to her? By the time I entered elementary and middle school, I was in charge of most of the household chores, from preparing meals and doing laundry to getting the bath ready. People around me would praise me, saying, "That's impressive," or "You're so responsible." But I only found joy in that at first. "It's a given that you do all these things," Mom would say with no words of thanks or praise. Instead, I was constantly being reprimanded for my cooking or the way I folded the laundry. The one who kept me going through all this was Dad. Unlike Mom and my sisters, Dad loved me and respected me. As the only man in the family, Dad was not well liked by Mom and my sisters, and his power within the family was as low as mine. But he always stood up for me. "I'm sorry, Emily. You always have to put up with so much. If only we could all live in harmony." Dad would often hold me tight and say these things. Despite his early mornings and late nights for work, Dad would always spend his days off with me, fulfilling Mom and my sister's demands together. And he always listened to my feelings and accepted my words. But my mom and her cohorts didn't seem to like that. "There's no one to protect you today," they'd tell me, pushing more chores onto me. They'd hurl harsh words at Dad too, such as, "For a man, low income." And my sisters would follow their lead, laughing and saying, "Disgusting!" and "Don't open your mouth." So no matter how much Dad tried to be a pillar of support, I was becoming increasingly frail. Noticing my distress, Dad said something to me when I entered high school. "Emily, study as much as you can, then go to college. Leave this house and live on your own. You, Emily, have so many possibilities. There's no need to endure and stay in this house forever. I want you to live your life," my father urged me. At his words, I felt both elated and anxious. At the time, my eldest sister Grace, 6 years older than me, was attending a private university. Ashley, 4 years older, was at a vocational school. Mom would often ridicule Dad for his low income and tell me, We're poor because he doesn't bring in money, so you should start working once you graduate from high school. Because of this, I believed our family was financially struggling. Despite that, I worried if Dad was pushing himself too hard, telling me to go to college and live on my own. But Dad insisted there's no need to worry about money.
I feel responsible for making you suffer so much. That's why I don't want you to endure any longer.
Dad,
this is a request from your father. You don't have to worry about anything. Just go to the university you want, study what you want. Find what you love to do. I want you to lead a happy life to make up for the hardship you've been through.
I could feel his strong resolve as he gripped my shoulder, his eyes moist with tears. From then on, I devoted myself to the studies I had neglected. Juggling the overbearing instructions from my mom and sisters, I spent all my remaining time studying at my desk. My hard work paid off, and I was accepted into a university. Dad and I embraced each other, sharing the joy of my acceptance. I kept it a secret from Mom and my sisters until the last minute, only announcing my plans to go to college and live alone on the day I was moving. At that time, Grace had already moved out and was living on her own, leaving only Mom and Ashley at home, who showered me with shouts of rage. I endured their harsh words until the end, finally breaking free from them. I kept my new mobile phone, a gift from Dad, a secret, not telling them which university I was going to or where I was going to live. Though I stayed in touch with Dad, I started a life without any involvement with my mom or my sisters. But just because I escaped from them didn't mean my university life was smooth sailing. I wasn't used to speaking my mind, and as a timid person, I was somewhat invisible in my department, unable to make friends. Then, Ethan reached out to me.
What do you think, Emily?
I was surprised when Ethan, the bright and central figure of the group, spoke to me. I was already uncomfortable speaking in front of people, and being put on the spot by him left me speechless. But Ethan pressed me.
You have thoughts, right? Share them. We won't know unless you say something.
A person who is pushy and doesn't consider other people's feelings. I initially thought of Ethan as pushy and inconsiderate. But as time passed, I came to see the kindness in Ethan, how he respected people's opinions. Thanks to Ethan, I started to make friends. Before long, I found myself drawn to Ethan, and by our third year, our relationship had progressed to dating. When I started dating Ethan, Dad excitedly congratulated us. And when I found a job, when Ethan and I decided to move in together, and when we decided to get married, Dad celebrated my happiness as if it was his own. But I had always been worried about Dad. Since starting university, I hadn't been home and hadn't seen Dad even once. We stayed in touch, but I was still concerned. Dad was living at that place with Mom and the others. I had no doubt he was still enduring snide comments from Mom and Ashley, still spending his days under their domineering instructions. Dad, I'm happy today because of you. Back then, I was powerless and always needed your help. But things have changed. I'm working now and I'm married. I have someone who supports me. So now it's my turn to help you. Please let me know if you're in any trouble. When I announced my marriage, I told him that. Having learned the importance of expressing my feelings to others since being with Ethan, I was finally able to put into words what I had never been able to tell Dad before.
Thank you.
Dad replied that way, but until now, 2 years later, Dad never asked me for help. Furthermore, recently, I heard that Grace, who was supposed to be living alone, quit her job and returned to our parents' house. My worry for Dad had only increased. Then one day, the doorbell rang just as I was confiding in Ethan about how worried I was about Dad. December was almost over, and even though it wasn't even 4 p.m., it was already getting dark outside. We had no scheduled deliveries, so we were surprised when we looked at the screen of the intercom. The person shown by the camera was none other than Dad. I rushed to the front door and opened it. Seeing Dad for the first time in 8 years, his cheeks were hollowed out, and there was more white than black in his hair. He looked visibly unwell. I instinctively knew that his sudden visit without any notice wasn't for a casual reason. "Dad, what's happened? Please come inside. It must be cold outside." Dad was wearing trousers and a long-sleeve shirt, even in December. This seemed too thin. Why would he be outside dressed like that? But the reason was revealed from Dad's mouth. Dad was kicked out of the house by Mom and the others.
"They told me to go buy dessert, so I went to the nearby convenience store. But when I came back, the house was locked. I asked them to open up, but they told me not to come back and didn't let me in."
What?
"I left the house without my phone or jacket, but I waited for several hours and they didn't seem to let me in."
As Dad rubbed his cold body, he told us about what happened that day. I quickly made some hot tea and gave it to Dad. Dad held the cup of tea with both hands to get warm and muttered softly,
"I might not be able to go back to that house again."
Why?
"Ever since Grace came back, Mom and the others' attitude got even worse. I was feeling at my limits too, and then they did this to me. I don't even have the energy to go back. I think I should look for a monthly apartment and think about what to do in the future. I'm sorry, but could I stay here for a few days? I'll leave as soon as I find an apartment."
I was worried, but I hadn't imagined it was this bad. Dad, who never complained before, was talking about his limits? "I'm sorry, Dad." I was about to apologize to Dad for knowing about his troubles and not being able to do anything when
"Let's live with your father."
Ethan raised his voice. "Are you sure?" I turned to my husband in surprise. Dad, too, unable to hide his surprise, opened his eyes wide.
"Sorry for being blunt, especially since we just met, but your father-in-law doesn't look too healthy. I think it would be best if we lived together to help him recover. Everything else can be figured out later, of course, only if he's okay with this."
Ethan's suggestion left Dad and I with nothing but gratitude. And so, our new life as a trio began. Just a few days after Dad moved in, our doorbell rang again. All three of us were stunned by the figures displayed on the intercom screen. Mom and my sisters were standing there. Why here? Shocked and bitter past memories made my breath hitch. But I had to face them. I didn't know what they would do next. In a panic, I opened the door. "Wow, I didn't expect you to be living in such a fancy place. I thought you were scraping by in some rundown apartment." Hearing Mom's voice after such a long time, all I could feel was resentment. "Why are you here?" "Your father's mobile had your address in it. I had no idea Emily even had a mobile phone." "Why would you give him your contact info but not us? Are you honoring the wrong person?" Just as before, Grace arrogantly looked down at me. After Mom's words, seeing her like this, Mom smiled satisfied and spoke again. "Well, never mind. Is your father here? We're having some trouble without him." Even though she said they were in trouble, there were no signs of actual distress. All three of them were smirking. "In trouble? But you're the ones who kicked him out." "You've become quite sassy, haven't you? So he is here. Move aside." "No," I yelled at Mom and her group. Mom's typical overbearing tone and her condescending remarks about me fueled my irritation. It would have been impossible in the past, but I had changed, all thanks to Ethan. However, Mom's irritation became apparent as she raised her voice. "When did I ever give you permission to talk back? Just move.
You can't even listen to what I say.
I'm not the same person I used to be. I won't be pushed around by you, Mom. I refused firmly. Ethan came up beside me, trying to shoo Mom and the others away. Despite our efforts, Mom and her group wouldn't leave. We repeated, "Move," and "No," until tired of the ordeal or maybe having given up. Mom was the one to break first.
"That's enough. I don't want to hear any more from you. If you won't move, can you at least let us know when the money will be deposited in our account? It's really annoying that all you can do is put money in, and you can't even do that." I was speechless at Mom's words. How did she think she's been able to live without working? My anger reached its peak. "From now on, Dad will be living with us. Dad and I will no longer be pushed around by you guys. Please divorce Dad and stop causing him pain." As I couldn't hold back my words any longer, the response from my mom was something I hadn't anticipated. "Don't make it sound like I'm the bad guy. I've been kind enough to stay as a family with a man like him who is low income and can't do a thing. You should be thanking me." "What?" "You're just like your dad, a low-income loser, acting high and mighty, but in the end, all you're doing is licking each other's wounds." I felt like I was about to lose control at Mom's words. I was on the verge of raising my voice, of lashing out, but then my husband spoke. "Emily works hard. She's a supervisor, earning a decent wage. I'd appreciate it if you didn't belittle us with comments about licking wounds."
As my husband stared down Mom, she retorted,
"Don't you dare talk back to me. You're an outsider, so stay quiet."
That's when Mom turned on Ethan. Dad, who should have been in the living room, was suddenly at my side, addressing Mom.
"I've heard enough. We can't impose on Emily and Ethan anymore. Let's get a divorce."
"Dad?" At Dad's words, my sisters chimed in with, "That's fine. That's fine. We don't need a creepy guy like you," one voice called out. Emboldened by my sisters, Mom agreed.
"That's fine by me."
I was dumbfounded by how quickly things had been resolved, but the peace didn't last long.
"But there's one condition. Hand over that house to me, then I'll give you your divorce."
Mom laid out her demand. Just how greedy could this woman be? But Dad quickly agreed to Mom's demand. "Dad, are you sure?" I was shocked, but Dad turned to me and smiled.
"If that's all it takes to get a divorce, it's a small price to pay."
He then turned back to Mom, his face serious.
"I'll do as you ask. Leave for today. I'll come over tomorrow."
With that, Dad sent Mom and my sisters home. They continued to belittle me until the end, but I didn't care. I felt guilty for pushing a divorce and causing Dad to lose his home. But Dad patted my shoulder.
"It's not your fault, Emily. In fact, I'm glad you spoke up."
The next day, Dad went back home one last time with the divorce papers. He made Mom fill out the divorce application, handled some paperwork, and packed his belongings. When Dad came back from our family home, he looked somehow lighter. It was sad to see the house go to Mom and my sisters, but if Dad felt relieved, I was okay with it. A few months later, Dad told me what had happened to Mom and my sisters. They had taken the family home as part of the divorce settlement and planned to live lavishly by selling it. However, the house was old. The location wasn't great. They couldn't sell the house or land for much, and demolition costs ate into the proceeds. In the end, they were left with almost nothing. Now, without a home or savings, Mom didn't work. Neither did Grace or Ashley have stable jobs. And with Dad gone, the same Dad they ridiculed for his low income status, while they leaned on him for living expenses, the trio found themselves in dire straits. They tried seeking help, showed up at our house several times, but we never opened the door to them. Still, they refused to give up, causing commotion at the front porch. I finally had to tell them through the intercom, "If you make any more noise, I'll call the cops." That sent them packing. Now it seems they're barely managing, renting an apartment that's too cramped for 3. Even Mom, who never worked before, was seemingly forced to get a job. That's how desperate they were. Despite all the times they made fun of Dad and I as a trio, they now seem to be constantly bickering among themselves. They appear to be blaming each other for their current circumstances. People rarely change. With neither Dad nor me around anymore, the ones they used to ridicule, they can't help but find someone else to target. It seems they're destined to lead lives filled with both physical and emotional poverty. Meanwhile, our lives have taken the polar opposite trajectory. Despite all their mockery about Dad being low income, he had actually been trading stocks for years, amassing a fortune. We only learned about this after the divorce was finalized. Dad feared that if any information leaked out, the trio would try to seize his assets, so he had decided not to mention it until the divorce was over. That's probably why he didn't mind giving up the family home. Now we're living comfortably in a new house that Dad built with his wealth. He quit his job to focus on his stocks. My husband and I have jobs too, so we're not struggling financially. We support each other while each maintaining our own financial independence. We hope to build the loving family that we couldn't have when we were young, from here on out.
I'm sorry I got into an accident. I don't think I can make it to Ellie's wedding. Could you please give my regards to Ellie?
When my husband, who was on his way to the wedding, said this to me over the phone, I happily responded like this. That's great. I didn't want you to come anyway. My name is Claire. I am a 50-year-old housewife. This year marks the 25th anniversary of my marriage to my husband, Jaden. We've been through a lot, but somehow I'm amazed that we've been able to stay married for 25 years. It makes me feel sentimental. However, I never expected something like this to happen in the year of our 25th anniversary.
Mom, it's been a while.
Oh, Ellie, it's so good to see you.
Yes, I brought your favorite cookies, Mom.
Wow, thank you. I'll make some tea right away. The person speaking now is Ellie, my daughter. Ellie is currently 25 years old. In fact, my husband and I had what is known as a shotgun wedding, and Ellie was born in the same year as our marriage. She graduated from university and has been working at a company for 3 years. She now lives on her own and seems to be working hard as a professional. I used to feel lonely when my only daughter became independent, but I'm happy because she comes back regularly like this. How are things going with work?
Yeah, I'm doing my best.
And what about your regular meals? Are you eating nutritious food?
I'm fine, Mom. I've been really into cooking lately. I even take cooking classes.
As she said that, my daughter showed me pictures of the dishes she made. Wow, that's amazing. You have proper side dishes and the soup looks delicious too.
I wonder if I can become a good wife.
You'll definitely become one if you can make all this. As I said that, my daughter blushed. Wait, could it be?
Yes, actually, I'm getting married.
Really? Congratulations! I was surprised by the sudden news of her marriage, but I was incredibly happy. Is it the person you've been dating from work?
Yes, he recently proposed to me.
I see, that's wonderful. My daughter had a look of happiness on her face. Seeing her like that made me happy too. So I'll finally get to meet your boyfriend, huh?
Yeah, he seems nervous about coming over to introduce himself.
Oh, really?
He seems nervous about meeting Dad.
Oh, but there's nothing to be scared of.
That's true. I'm saying that, but I guess it's natural for guys to feel nervous about meeting their partner's father.
I see. That makes sense. My daughter and I were laughing while having that conversation. My husband doesn't have a tough appearance, and he's not particularly imposing, as he's often outmatched by me and our daughter in arguments. However, he has always worked hard, and thanks to that, I've been able to be a full-time housewife even now. I'm grateful to him for that. He's generally a kind person, so there's nothing to be afraid of. When my husband came home from work, my daughter also shared the news of her marriage with him.
What? Ellie's getting married?
Yeah, I'll introduce my fiancé next time.
I see. It feels a bit nerve-wracking.
Even you're saying that, huh?
Huh?
Ellie's fiancé is also nervous, you know.
I see. Well, from a guy's perspective, meeting the partner's father is nerve-wracking.
Upon hearing my husband's words, my daughter and I couldn't help but laugh.
Birds of a feather! Both of you might get along well.
My daughter said that while we were having dinner together. About a week later, on a day off, my daughter brought her fiancé over.
Nice to meet you. I'm Leo.
Nice to meet you. I'm Ellie's mother, and this is her father. The fiancé my daughter brought was a very refreshing person.
Leo was my senior and my mentor at work. He's really capable and reliable. He always helped me with my mistakes.
Oh no, Ellie hardly made any mistakes. She always supported me in my work. She learns quickly, and I respect her for that. When I was in my 3rd year, I couldn't handle the job as well as she does now.
Leo's words praising my daughter made me very happy. My daughter blushed with embarrassment at the compliments. My husband seemed to think that Leo was a trustworthy person and felt relieved.
Please, take care of Ellie.
My husband bowed his head as he said that, and I followed suit. The introduction and discussion about the marriage proceeded in a friendly atmosphere. We even ordered pizza delivery midway and started a fun party with drinks. Leo seemed to have a strong tolerance for alcohol and enjoyed whiskey. Since I also liked whiskey, I enjoyed drinking until the end. Since my daughter and husband are not good with alcohol, they stopped drinking at a suitable point, and Ellie, who was slightly taken aback by seeing me and Leo continue drinking, makes various snacks for me, knowing that I enjoy alcohol. I think it's wonderful that she has such a lovely domestic side.
Hey, Leo, are you getting drunk? You don't have to praise me that much, you know.
My daughter's face turned red, not from the alcohol, but from embarrassment. I was convinced that with someone like him, my daughter would definitely be happy. Afterwards, my daughter met Leo's parents, and it turned out that they were also wonderful people. Hearing about it put my mind at ease. During the meeting of our families, my husband and I also met Leo's parents, and they were truly kind and had lovely smiles. Seeing them, I understood that if these people were his parents, it was no wonder what a wonderful and accomplished man like Leo had grown up. I was surprised when Ellie said she was getting married, but as things progress like this, it really hits me that it's true.
Yeah, that's true.
And to think she's getting married this year, it somehow feels nostalgic, doesn't it?
Huh? What do you mean?
Huh? I wonder if the meaning of what I said was difficult to convey. Since my husband asked me in that way, I was a bit confused. No, I thought it was a significant timing. About us. I wanted my husband to come up with the answer himself as much as possible, so I didn't say it clearly, but it seemed he hadn't noticed until now.
About us?
Oh, could it be that you forgot?
Sorry, what are you talking about?
This year, we're celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. The silver wedding anniversary. My husband finally seemed to realize at this point. I was a bit shocked that he had completely forgotten. Was I the only one who remembered and felt happy about it? It made me a bit lonely to sense a difference in enthusiasm between my husband and me.
Sorry. Was it our silver wedding anniversary this year? Ellie's wedding is so joyous that it slipped my mind.
While my husband was trying to brush it off, the news of our daughter getting married was recent. It's been over 6 months since the year started, and our anniversary is just 2 months away. Normally, one would remember it's the silver wedding anniversary. I felt a sense of unease and confusion, but still. What should we do this year? I asked my husband. He responded,
What do we do for a silver wedding anniversary?
He asked me back. Considering he had forgotten, it would be appropriate for him to research and come up with suggestions himself out of apology. Maybe prepare a celebratory gift or go to a slightly expensive restaurant? I'm not sure though. When I said that with a hint of coldness, my husband replied,
I see. Let's do that then.
Wait, are you deciding so easily?
Well, isn't that the classic or standard choice? It's more enjoyable to go for something safe rather than risk a failure.
Well, that might be true, but... I understood what my husband was saying, but I felt like he wanted to get this event and this conversation over with as soon as possible, which made me even more bewildered. I was a bit upset, so I thought about discussing it with our daughter, but I held back because it wouldn't be right to talk about my dissatisfaction with our married life during this joyful period of preparing for her own wedding. After that, I started to look at my husband with a slightly suspicious eye. I had been completely off guard, or rather, I hadn't paid much attention. But when I realized that my husband doesn't seem to cherish our married life, I couldn't help but wonder if his focus has shifted somewhere else. And gradually, various suspicious thoughts started to arise. Firstly, let's talk about his smartphone. My husband is a true analog person, and he used to leave his phone unlocked for the sake of simplicity and ease of use. Now, he has added fingerprint authentication to his phone. Moreover, while he used to leave it lying around on the dining table or various places, recently, he doesn't even let it out of his sight, not even when he goes to the restroom.
Is he cheating on you?
Huh? Cheating? Feeling overwhelmed with confusion, I invited my longtime friend Kinsley to lunch and poured out my thoughts to her. That's when Kinsley made that statement. But we've been married for 25 years already. There was a part of me that didn't want to believe it. However, Kinsley cut straight to the point and said,
You're being naive. If you let your guard down like that, you can easily be discarded in no time. If you suspect something, immediately hire a private investigator to look into it. If he's having an affair, you can divorce him on the grounds of the other party's fault, and even receive compensation for emotional distress. You have to be proactive about this.
I see. Kinsley is originally divorced due to her ex-husband's affair, so every word she says carries credibility. Well, the difference between her and me is that she runs her own company and is actively working. However, I still thought it might be a good idea to try hiring a private investigator. I felt that if I didn't do it, I would just continue to feel unsettled, which was not good for my mental well-being. However, I immediately regretted having the investigation done. It turned out that my suspicions were correct, and my husband was indeed having an affair. The person he was involved with seems to be a subordinate who works in the same company. The age of the affair partner is 30, which is closer to my daughter's age than mine. I was deeply shocked to learn about my husband's affair. And the fact that he was involved with a woman 20 years younger than me made me feel disgusted. My feelings of love for my husband quickly faded away. I don't want to celebrate our silver wedding anniversary in such a state. How about, instead of forcefully celebrating our silver wedding anniversary, we use that money to increase the wedding gift for Ellie's wedding? I proposed that to my husband, and he instantly lit up with excitement.
Wow, that's a great idea. Let's do that,
he said. I felt angry when I sensed that my husband found our 25th wedding anniversary celebration troublesome based on his attitude. However, I held myself back from expressing it because I also realized that my husband was having an affair. I thought that immediately getting a divorce would be unfair to our daughter and would put her in a difficult position. It would be sad if, with the wedding approaching, it became known that her parents were getting divorced due to an affair. In such a situation, it would be difficult to decide whether to invite both parents to the wedding. That's why I decided to keep it hidden for a while that I know about my husband's affair. I plan to wait until after our daughter's wedding is over to pursue a divorce. Until then, I have to endure and continue living with my husband, so it has been quite painful. But it's for the sake of our daughter, so I have no choice. I've decided to start working on considering the time after the divorce.
Hey, then why don't you work at my place?
Is that okay? I haven't worked for 25 years.
But you used to work in an administrative position, and you have qualifications, right?
Well, yes, but...
Don't worry, Claire. You've always been skilled and capable of anything. So you'll quickly adapt to working at my place.
With Kinsley's encouragement, I decided to start working. It was a great feeling to be back in the workplace after such a long time. Until now, my only interaction with society was through my mom and friends as a stay-at-home mom. But once my daughter became an adult, even that connection diminished. So being able to communicate with different people like this was enjoyable. It seemed like my husband had completely lost interest in me, so he didn't oppose when I mentioned going back to work. Creating an environment where I could talk to people other than my husband was really beneficial. And as I resumed work, I gradually rediscovered the joy of it. Come to think of it, even before getting married, I used to find work enjoyable.
Kinsley smiled as she watched me come alive and do my job.
Mom, you have such a strong and determined look on your face.
Oh, really?
Yeah, starting work really gives you that professional look.
Well, maybe it does. Anyway, the wedding is coming up soon.
Yes, I'm really excited.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in your bridal attire, too. I tried to divert the conversation and cover up any signs of my impending divorce from my daughter. It seemed like she hadn't noticed anything, but amidst all that, something unbelievable happened. Huh? A business trip?
Yeah.
This week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday is Ellie's wedding day, you know.
I'll make sure to be back in time for the wedding.
Why'd you schedule a business trip at such a timing?
It's an order from the company. There's nothing I can do about it.
To my surprise, despite our daughter's upcoming wedding, my husband scheduled a business trip. But deep down, I knew it wasn't really a business trip. He was probably planning to go on a trip with his affair partner. I felt an overwhelming anger towards my husband. I wish he would at least consider ensuring the smooth progress of our daughter's wedding. I couldn't forgive him for prioritizing himself and his affair partner like that. Furious, I took advantage of my husband's deep sleep to discreetly use his thumb to unlock his smartphone with fingerprint recognition. I wanted to confirm his communication with the affair partner. And as I expected, I discovered that my husband and his affair partner were planning an illicit trip together. I discreetly took photos of their messages on my own smartphone and quietly closed my husband's phone.
Well, I'm off. I'll make sure to be back in time for the wedding.
With those words, my husband left early in the morning. I felt a lot of frustration, but I decided to start packing my belongings so that I could leave as soon as my daughter's wedding was over. I had already signed a new lease for a new apartment, preparing for a quick move. If my husband was going to be away from home, I should have timed my move earlier. But I decided to switch gears and focus on my daughter's wedding. And then, on the day of the wedding, as soon as I saw my daughter in her wedding dress in the waiting room, thoughts of my husband completely vanished from my mind. Ellie, you look absolutely beautiful.
Thank you, Mom.
I was deeply moved by my daughter's stunning appearance. Soon, the attendees started gathering at the wedding venue. Just before the wedding was about to begin, my phone rang. It was my husband calling. I lowered my face and pressed the answer button. Hello? Where are you? The wedding is about to start. Then my husband made a surprising statement.
I'm sorry, I just got into an accident. I don't think I'll be able to make it to Ellie's wedding.
Huh? An accident? Are you okay? I didn't care about my husband, but hearing about an accident still made me worry.
Oh, I'm fine. It was a minor collision and no one got hurt.
I see. That's good to hear.
But my car is damaged. I have to go through various procedures and police questioning, so I don't think I can make it to the wedding in time. Could you please give my regards to Ellie?
Receiving the call from my husband, who was on his way to the wedding, I happily responded. That's great. I didn't want you to come anyway.
Huh?
Because you weren't actually on a work trip, were you? You were going on an affair trip, right? I wonder if your trip with your 30-year-old subordinate Bella was enjoyable.
Why do you know all of that?
I know about your affair and where you were really going today. I was planning to keep quiet until Ellie's wedding was over, but if you can't make it, it works out well for me. Please don't come to the wedding. We can discuss the divorce proceedings through a lawyer at a later date.
This is...
My husband was absolutely mortified to learn that I knew everything. Well, the wedding is about to start, so I'll hang up now. I said that and hung up the phone. When relatives and our daughter asked why my husband wasn't there, I explained that he had been delayed due to an accident while on his way from the business trip. I decided to tell our daughter the truth after the wedding. She seemed a little sad, but she accepted the situation and adjusted her feelings. During the wedding, I explained to the guests that my husband couldn't attend. Leo's family understood the circumstances, which was a relief. And the wedding began successfully, and I enjoyed the wedding ceremony and reception. My daughter looked stunning, and it was an incredibly beautiful ceremony. When I read the letter of gratitude from my daughter to me, I couldn't help but cry. And the wedding ceremony of my daughter ended successfully. Then, in the dressing room, my daughter said to me,
Mom, you've been silently enduring all this time, haven't you? Even though it must have been hard for you.
Huh?
I knew about Dad's affair, too.
What? Is that true?
Yeah. Just recently, when I went to visit your home, I found the investigation results from a private detective in the drawer.
I see.
I can't forgive Dad either. Today wasn't really a business trip for him, right?
I told my daughter everything. She was very disappointed and said that deciding on a divorce was the right choice. She also informed the relatives in Leo's family who were in the waiting room about my husband's affair. She mentioned that I had endured and kept silent to prevent the wedding from being ruined. Everyone sympathized with me and offered words of comfort. They all expressed their contempt towards my husband and vowed not to have any further involvement with him. Afterwards, I discussed the divorce with my husband and our respective lawyers. Feeling betrayed after supporting the family as a homemaker for many years, I demanded a high amount of $80,000 in compensation from my husband. I also demanded $30,000 from his affair partner. My husband was furious at the high amount, but when I said I was willing to go to court to fight for it, he reluctantly agreed, expressing concerns about the legal proceedings. However, I still couldn't forgive my ex-husband, so I reported the affair to his workplace. As a result, his reputation plummeted. It seems that his involvement with a subordinate who was 20 years younger became a significant issue, and he ended up being demoted. It seems like he's facing a lot of coldness and judgment from those around him. He's working hard to make the settlement payments, but it's clear that he feels uneasy about it. In addition, as a result of this incident, he has been abandoned by all his relatives and even received a declaration of estrangement from our daughter. He appears to be utterly alone and lonely. It's all his own doing, and I can't help but think it serves him right. On the other hand, I have started living on my own and have thrown myself into work. I have become completely devoted to my job, and I have been entrusted with various responsibilities at the company, becoming a reliable presence. My daughter seems to be enjoying a happy newlywed life with her husband, and she occasionally visits my place to spend time together. I plan to continue working hard and warmly supporting my daughter as I move forward. It's scummy to prioritize an adulterous trip over your daughter's wedding. Well, to begin with, engaging in an affair is already despicable. Claire and Ellie, it's probably for the best that they ended ties with such a despicable man. In the end, it was a good thing that he didn't come to the wedding. From now on, I hope both of you can live happily as mother and daughter, cherishing your bond and enjoying each day. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.